Listen, last time I was on here, I basically told y'all I was gonna talk about the rise of Donna Street Crips. But then I started thinking, why would I skip ahead of everything else just to talk about them? That don't make sense. If I'm gonna talk about me and my life story, I need to stick with me. And when the Dynasty Crips come into, then we'll talk about them. Okay. Picking up from where I left off, like I said, I come out of Herbert Gershon. For people that's not familiar with Vegas, Herbert Gershon, man, is probably, it would be like the Jordan Downs or the Nickersons and Watts. So projects, are real big projects. They tore it down in the early 2000s. It was an area a lot of people did not go in, man. And if you did, you entered at your own risk, because it was brutal over there. I grew up watching in front row seats. I seen guys get beat down to death just for being over there. I've seen people get robbed up close, shot up close, ran over, stabbed, you name it. I was right there. I watched my daddy get shot twice. I watched him get ran over. So I grew up in that cycle of violence. And Herbert Gershon, when Vegas wasn't even yet fully developed, Vegas was a big desert. And I'm talking way back then when I was a little kid, Vegas was a big old desert. And but over there on the west side, the Gershon, it was a horrible neighborhood. And growing up, all I did, was fight. My grandmother, they called her Dot, Dorothy Ann Davidson. She was my heartbeat. She never seen no wrong in me. And she tried to not see too much wrong and fault in my father, because he was the only one that she could talk to and he would listen to. So, my grandma, she played a special role, but I don't want to really get into that. That's going to be in the book. This right here, I'm going to just speak to you and give you chapters. As I grew up, I quickly learned that, you better be ready to fight on the spot up in the Gershon, because somebody go either try to take what you got, try to bully you, or just try to, we didn't have nothing to do over there, so we just fought. That's all we did. We fought all day. We fought anybody. We fought each other. We fought the police. That's all we did was fight. There was so much turbulence and violence over there, man, and we had interesting characters over there, like Allie Ho. And she was a female that used to stand in front of her house and cuss everybody out, was a drunk. We used to walk by her house and cuss her out, and she'd just go off on us. She stayed drunk. We had like Dookie Blue. Dookie Blue was my homeboy Gus' uncle. He used to drink Thunderbird, and all of a sudden he thought he was Bruce Lee. He get full of that Thunderbird. He get to throwing karate kicks, roundhouses, and all that. We had a lot of different characters over there. You know what I mean? But as time passed and the gang culture started to develop, one of the persons that I first started hanging with, I was 10 years old, would be Lil Derek Anderson. He come from California, actually, Altadena. He was from ABC, him and his brother LaRon, and his brother Tank, and his mama Merlin. They all come from California. I was one of the first persons he met when he came in Vegas, so me and him instantly kicked it off. We began things like, going to Rita's Groceries, stealing stuff, going to Doolittle, which was a community center that had a swimming pool over there where my daddy used to fight. We used to sneak in there and go to the swimming pool and stuff like that. Doing, just stuff that little bad boys do, like trying to go to Kmart and steal a bike, But we went from that, like I say, when the drug game hit in 84 and 85, it changed a lot. And so when them little white substance started hitting our neighborhood, we went from stealing that to stealing sprees, mopeds, breaking in people's houses, you know what I mean? Playing with guns, hot wiring cars and stuff. As a matter of fact, the guy I hung out with, Lil Derek, he ended up having a car when he was 14. He was one of the youngest ones in the Gershon to have a car. He had a orange Thunderbird. But let's get to the good part. When Vegas really cracked off because a lot of things happened in Vegas. Like you had incidents where Crystal Palace, where I told you the GQs, that was like one of their main headquarters, Bloods uh, kicked it in back in 1980, 87, 88. They kicked in the side door at Crystal Palace along with a few members of the California bounty hunters, and they shot it up. That was a high-profile case out here. Everybody know about that, Emery Gary and all that. He went to the penitentiary from Peru. He didn't tell. The majority of them got away. But that was a major incident out here. What really set it off, though, because during the crack era, gangbanging was kind of subtle. You know, everybody, the GQs was dying off. Other gangs was forming. The Rolling 60s made a transition off from 40 Block to Crip City and began to have an impact on gang culture. So everybody started developing their neighborhoods and, you know, trying to be major figures. But in the Gershon, we became bigger because, why I get to that, that's later on in the line. But we ended up becoming the biggest gang. But let me tell you about an incident that really was the first major, which caused the first major gang war in Vegas. It happened December 4th, 1986, and it was at a place called the Comfort Inn on Bonanza. All right, the West Coast Bloods, when they came out, it wasn't a lot of members. It wasn't a lot of them, you know. So we used to come to their basketball court, and it was called an 80 guy. And, you know, we used to come over there to play basketball. You know, that was just like a community thing. But could nobody come into Gershon and play basketball? But we'll come in your neighborhood and play basketball on your basketball court. You know, but you couldn't come in our neighborhood and play basketball. That's how we was. You can ask anybody in Vegas. But the West Coast Bloods, you know, they didn't have a lot of members. And, you know, we had a few skirmishes with them. And, you know, the area, Marble Manor, wasn't really a gang-infested area. It was beginning to take on the identity of a blood neighborhood that used to be a Crip neighborhood. But it really didn't even have an identity, okay? So it was Gershons that actually stayed over there. And what happened is when we was having skirmishes with the newly formed West Coast Bloods, they ended up, you know, basically saying, can't no Gershons live over here. So they jumped on one of a prominent member of the Gershons. His name was Bad Mike. They jumped him. Okay, that led to the Gershons coming over there and basically jumping on the West Coast Bloods and even beating up their drill team. So it was basically an undeclared war. We didn't really take them seriously because they were just up and coming. We was already established. We had major dope dealers. We had guns and we had numbers. We had Cadillacs. We had Cadillacs on Dayton's. We was doing what we was doing. They was barely forming. Well, it was a party that was going to be at this place I just said, the Comfort Inn. And the Gershons was going to all go at night. But it was a female, and her name was Tanya. She stayed in the Gershon, but she was what you considered an agent. She was messing with them Bloods, but she stayed in the Gershon, but she was messing with them Bloods. When you know how that be when a new gang form, females are for some reason curious, and they, you know, if they're not loyal, they end up over there with them. You know how they go. But anyway, she ended up tricking or talking two of my homeboys, which was David Vaughn, aka LD Zave, and my cousin, Thomas Mitchell, aka Killer Can. She talked them into coming to the Comfort Inn a little bit earlier before everybody. And when they went there, what they didn't know that place was packed full of Bloods. So when they walked in, because you got to go upstairs to go up inside the lounge. So when you go up in there, when they walked in, it was nothing but Bloods up in there. And so, you know, when they seen that, you know, it was mean mugging, and they started bagging up. Next thing you know, it was word said, and they got the fight. So the fight spilled outside, L had a member of West Coast Bloods by the name of Bodie Mack, Corey Thompson, and was finna throw him off the balcony. Well, his brother, Doug Thompson, they call him Heavy. He was trying to shoot L. And when he shot, he ended up shooting his own brother on accident because L had his brother damn near over the balcony. And when he shot at L, he ended up striking his brother. And when he realized he shot his brother, he kind of freaked out and he put L in a headlock and he shot L 3 times in the head. L collapsed to the ground. Can was stumbling out. And when Can stumbled out the house, he shot Can in the mouth and in the shoulder, and Can dived down the stairs. That's the only thing saved his life. He dived down the stairs, and I think he got hit in the foot. That's the only reason why he lived. But L was already shot in the head 3 times, laying on the ground. All right? Now, when L got shot in his head, it was rumors, that when the Bloods ran out of there, L was like right there laying there. I ain't gonna, need to get into that, but one of the Bloods, when they ran out of there, they stepped on his head. He had already been shot 3 times and they stepped on his head. We found out all that. So, when it was kind of real weary that day. It was like someone right. The sun was out, and then next thing you know, it wasn't. It got cloudy, real cloudy, and it started raining. Like what the, just out of the blue, and we was like, we was oblivious to what had happened until people started getting calls, and then we was hearing that L and Can both was dead. But L was still alive, even after he got shot 3 times in the head. L died at the hospital. But what we was hearing was both of them was dead. So everybody getting misinformation and scrambling like, what the hell going on? They saying, straight up, no disrespect to nobody, but they just said, man, these slobs killed L, man. They killed L and Can. Who killed L and Can? These slob ass niggas from the coast. So we everybody mounted up, and then one of our homeboys who actually went to the hospital when L did die, he came back, flock, driving crazy. And we was like, what's happening? When he jumped out the car, he was crying. And everybody was like, what's happening? He wouldn't say nothing. He was just walking to his house and we were like, man, what's up, man? We heard L got, and then he just cut everybody off. He said, L dead. L just died. And then, it was like a joke went through all of us, like, what the fuck? Next thing you know, everybody after that, people just got in their Cadillacs and their cars, man, and they pushed up Washington. Pushed up Highland before. I don't think it was even Martin Luther King. Then they pushed up Highland, and we was going to the coast because the coast was on Highland and Washington, which is Martin Luther King in Washington now. But it was on Highland. We pushed up there, and the police had already blocked off Washington because they was looking for Heavy because the Comfort Inn where he killed L was on Washington and Bonanza. Okay, so the police had the little wooden barricades up, and we was coming, man. And it was so many Cadillacs, Cutlass, Buicks, all kind of coming up that street, man. And the gang unit was out there, and we didn't care. When you could tell them when they seen them Cadillacs coming through there. My homie Poncho Boonch, he was in a burnt orange convertible Cadillac on Dayton's with a white Louis Vuitton suit on, white Kangol. Mind you, this back in '86 when wearing Louis Vuitton and Kangos and Adidas sweatsuits and feelers, and that LL Cool J look was kind of prevalent out in Vegas, But hold on, man. Why somebody want to call me when I'm on, doing my live? But anyway. We came through that, man, and we bust through that barricade, and we laid down everything. And you can ask the police. They seen about 5 arms coming out of each window. We came through there, and we tore the coast up. We tore it up. And when they get up on us, when we pushed through there, Poncho went the other way. And they got behind Poncho, and they ended up catching Poncho. They had him on the news all in the desert, dirty and titty, but he had on big you know, jury and all that old stuff, man. But they killed one of our loved ones, you know. But let me call y'all back, man. Let me get y'all back. Somebody really want my piece, so I'll get back. Damn. So much of my video.